All right. Good evening, everyone. I want to call the Caldwell County Board of Commissioners meeting for September the 13th, 2021 to order. And we want to say that we appreciate everyone who has joined us in our audience here this evening, as well as those who are joining us by TV. Our first item on the agenda is our invocation, and that'll be led by Senior Pastor at Lenoir Presbyterian, Rob Hinman, and we'll follow that with our Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Jeff Branch will lead us in that this evening. So, Pastor.
Mr. Chairman, I want to share just a bit of God's Word in one moment and pray briefly for us, but I want to say thank you all, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. In the world today, it takes a lot of nerve to stand for public office and to be in public office and to run the government of any entity in this country. And so our prayers are with you. We appreciate you. I do, even if I disagree with you. I'm not sure that I have a disagreement with you, but I appreciate and I honor anyone who stands up to take a public position these days and to seek to govern the people of this beautiful county, and we appreciate it. It's been my joy to live here 16 years, and what a great place to live. The Word of God is from Psalm 31, "But I trust in you, O Lord. I say you are my God. My times are in your hand. Rescue me from the hand of my enemies and from my persecutors." That may be a prayer that is appropriate to you. "Make your face shine on your servant. Save me in your steadfast love." And skipping down to the 23rd verse, "Love the Lord, all you his saints. The Lord preserves the faithful, but abundantly repays the one who acts in pride. Be strong and let your heart take courage, all you who wait for the Lord." In the Hebrew language of the Old Testament, the word for be strong and courageous is hazak v'amatz. We say it often around Lenoir Presbyterian, and so I say it over you tonight as a blessing, hazak v'amatz. It is in an ancient language, but it is a pledge that God will give us the courage. He will give us the strength we need in each situation. Let's pray. Oh Lord God, we give you our thanks tonight. I realize that many are in different places spiritually, but I thank you, Lord, that you are about the most essential work of life, and that is to call us home to you, to be at peace in you, and we praise you for that. I pray tonight for these commissioners and for this county that they would exhibit the courage you give them, not the courage of an office, but the courage that you instill in them. Lord, I pray that they would also be compassionate, that they would care for those they serve, that they would remember it is not this county's task to serve them, but for them to serve the county. Lord, I pray not only for our commissioners, but for our county, for our nation, and for this world, that we would stand down from posturing, and that we would stand up for common sense, common decency, and love for one another. In this moment when we still stand in the ripple effect of this 20th anniversary of a great heartache for our country, we pray, Lord, that you would remind us of what it means to be Americans, people who are exceptional in their service for others, not in others serving us. We love you, we praise you, we give you all glory, each in our own way. I, in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Everyone face the flag, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Pastor. And so, are there any amendments to our agenda this evening, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, there's two proposed amendments to the agenda. The addition of item 8, or an item 2.8c, which is item for decision ARP funds expenditures. The generator at the HHS building is in need of replacement, and this can be done with ARP funds, and it's an essential function now with the storage of the vaccines over there. And then 9G, in addition to the consent agenda, the Department of Social Services Friday evening, received word that there was available funding through the state as part of some of the foster program. It's tied to COVID money, so its time is of the essence, and there's no county money required to match these funds.
All right, hearing our clerk's report, what's the pleasure of the board in adopting our agenda this evening?
Mr. Chair, I move that we receive this evening's agenda with the budgeted amendments as the county clerk has presented.
All right, any other discussion or comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously, and we have our agenda. And our first item on the agenda is our COVID-19 update. Our health director, Miss Anna Martin. And as Anna's coming up, I had asked her to give us an update of kind of where we are and what's going on and some of the things that she is doing at the health department. And I can preface this by saying they are working very hard and diligently there, and I appreciate all their efforts and the things that they're doing within our community. So, Miss Martin,
All right.
tell others.
And thank you for having me to do this presentation. I'm just going to give you a snapshot of what we've done over the year and a half, and then give you an update of what we're doing now. So, of course, you see the heroes work here. I want to thank Wendy Pyle and DSS. She did this for us, for everybody in the county, really, that has participated in COVID-19. And here's the stats to date. You can see the positives, recovered, hospitalized. I won't go over each one of these, but I will go over the number active is 549. The ages that aren't shown, that is important, 0 to 5 is 369, 6 to 10 is 390, 11 to 18 is 1,219, and we've seen an increase in this. This is due to particularly young kids cannot get vaccinated, extracurricular activities, school starting back, things like that. It's just a spread that's everywhere. The clusters that are going on now is at High Brighton, South Caldwell, Dudley Shoals Elementary, Collettsville Elementary, and the outbreaks that we have is Lenoir Healthcare, Share Center, Caldwell Detention Center, Gateway, Bethel Colony. And I did want to mention hospitalized is 35 there. In the ICU at the hospital, it's 6. That's something that's important. All right, so I'm going to kind of go from the beginning of when this started. So February 4th, 2020, we had 11 cases in the U.S., limited information for the health departments and funneling travelers at airports. February 11th, 2020, 13 cases in the U.S. and 0 in North Carolina. The health department has been planning for the pandemic and was ready at this point. We were having epi meetings, so our team was getting everything together. We were already having drills since before this, so now we're actually in the planning mode of this is coming, this is happening, and we know what to do. We designated our emergency operations center, planned our emergency action plan, filled our command structure, and looked at PPE as possible resources. And we also had those weekly calls with the state. That was fantastic, that we loved so much. This was kind of where it began. It was February 14th, 2020. Everything in public health happens at 4 o'clock on a Friday. So we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. At this time, with COVID, we were getting all our notifications of any kind of travelers from the state. So we received that we had a traveler coming from Wuhan, that was near Hubei province. We couldn't find adequate details on this location of the person. However, we were in touch with a school who had a possible student coming back from Wuhan. The phone number that the state gave us, along with the school's matched. So we kind of knew we were in the right direction if both phone numbers matched. At this point, we knew we were making headway, but we didn't realize how hard it was getting in touch with this family. We visited the school, and they called the family, and they picked up, thankfully. We were able to discuss that we had a few questions for this person and let them know that they weren't in any kind of trouble, because at this time, if we called, they're like, why am I in trouble for traveling? What did I do? So later on that day, we went back with our communicable disease nurse to talk with this family through our language line. So we had about 30 questions through a language line, which roughly took about 2.5 hours, if you can imagine. But we got through most of it. We had to reassure this person that we wanted to help them, that they weren't in trouble. Within this time frame, the state made mandatory quarantine orders, so that consisted of me writing the order delivery along with releasing the patient. So mind you, at this time, we didn't have any in Caldwell County. This is just someone who's traveled. After Chad Barr and I spoke with the family, issued the quarantine order, I met with the beneficial key leaders who may be involved, whether it be fire, EM, police, that sort of thing, with what little information we could give. This family was really scared. I can't even imagine to tell you what they went through. They were even getting threats towards them because they traveled. So people were calling, people were threatening them. My assistant Jeannie and I, we went to take food and other items later that week and had to go very discreetly. But we didn't know that was only the first family. So this kind of goes into quarantine and isolation. So towards the end of February into March, we did quite a few quarantine orders as well as isolation orders. So quarantine, of course, means that you've been in contact with the virus, in this case COVID, and you need to quarantine yourself at home for a certain amount of days. Isolation means you have the virus and you need to isolate yourselves from others. And here's an example of the quarantine order that we had to issue everybody that need to stay away. So with this being said, since we quarantined and isolated individuals, we were also responsible for their needs. In preparing for this, our EPI team met almost weekly to make sure we were ready for the upcoming situations. And this is where it got really busy. So meeting the need. During this time frame, we had to provide for their groceries, cleaning supplies, medications, anything that they needed because they couldn't leave their house. We had multiple families request certain items, but we were so very grateful for Yoke Fellow who stepped up and provided box food for each of these families. All we had to do is call Yoke Fellow and say, I have, 2 people, it's a 2-people household, maybe a baby or something like that. And she would provide the food box, send somebody out, and then they would take it to the home, drop it on the front porch, knock, and then go. We had all departments hands on deck at this point, environmental and animal control as well, making deliveries, and thanks to emergency services for helping as well. We are also facing North Carolina guidance obstacles of quarantine periods, exposure guidance, and of course masks. Another obstacle was limited resources. We could only order a limited amount of gloves, N95, surgical masks, etc. But community partners donated PPE to help us make it through what we needed. Our staffing capacity was at a total max, utilizing all 80 employees from contact tracing, deliveries, follow-up with patients, whether it be for results or just checking on them every 2 days. At that time, the state said if you have a positive patient or whatnot, you had to call them, or even if they were a contact, you need to call them, check on them, see how they're doing, if they need anything. Testing, locating patients if they were unreachable, all while keeping our health department open to the public. Guidance was constantly changing, and I'll say this a lot, but that did not help our perspective to the public eye. Not to mention we had a pertussis outbreak, and I believe we had 2 at that time while COVID was going on. So 2 CD issues at once for public health is a perfect storm, while our Hep A numbers were second highest in the state. To say busy was an understatement. We have to think about our priorities and move forward. At this time, everything was constantly changing, but what we did know was that we did not have additional help, and we knew we were all hands on deck. So that's whenever, talking with Dino, we opened the Emergency Operations Center in March of 2020. And that picture's from the beginning, obviously, before masks and things like that. So some of the duties in the EOC were just answering the phone line, whether it be for questions, reporting issues, how to get tested, or just requesting decons. For media, thankfully, we had Paige, who helped tremendously with our public information, whether it be releases, social media, websites, PSAs, or just talking to news anchors who showed up or called. We had daily conference calls with the hospital and school system. A big part was data entry and contact tracing. So we had multiple people throughout the health department who did contact tracing, but a few people had access to our positive log. And this is every patient that we had results for that was positive, we had to enter in our log. So they were entering as fast as they could. So every time there was a positive patient too, we had them to fill out a blank form, a blank tracing form, and then were dispersed to all the employees. So within the health department, they made phone calls to positive patients, constantly calling to ask tracing questions. Some of those questions were you around someone within the last 48 hours? Were you at school, work, church, etc. Most people knew where they got COVID from, but few did not. We were able to link those to current clusters or events. Not only was one 9-page form time consuming, but we got to the point where one person was calling up to 5 or so a day, given we had over 100 positives per day at one point. If someone didn't answer the phone, we had to go locate them to ask questions or just tell them they were positive. So we also had a team that if they didn't answer the phone when we called to tell them they were positive, or if they were notified they were positive by a different provider, but we called to ask them questions for contact tracing and they didn't answer, we had to go out to them and find them and locate them. Luckily, we did have assistance from the state, and someone was sent to do our data entry and contact tracing for us towards the end of December, which took a huge burden off. In the midst of answering phones, media, helping tests, the extra personnel was quite beneficial. Also with the EOC, we had late evening and weekend shifts, so the EOC was staffed 24/7 by emergency services, providing decons and helping assist with the phone line. The health department staff was 7:30 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 Saturday and Sundays, depending on the caseload. So this is just pictures of testing. Initially, the school nurses helped a lot with testing. So when the pandemic started, the schools were closed. The school nurses reported to the health department full time. All calls related to COVID testing were set up to come to the school nurse suite for nursing triage. Testing was done by appointments by the child health nursing staff. At that point, letters were drafted and handed out to patients that met different scenarios. It might be work notes, if they had to leave their work early, close contact notes, or symptomatic notes. In August 2020, school nurses returned to their schools. They contact traced all positive staff and students and reported cases to the health department in addition to other school nurse responsibilities. And then at that point, the phone line returned back to the EOC. So staff also went into some homes to complete COVID-19 testing on citizens who were bedridden. Luckily, later on, we were able to utilize our community paramedics to visit bedridden citizens, not only to test, but to give vaccines. We continue testing on the side of the building, integrating clinic nurses along with keeping our current clinic open. Around last December, the state did allow local health departments to decrease some main department functions. They've not done that yet this year, though. Some events that we've had, staff, we did a drive-through at the health department and at South Caldwell High School, and that was just for testing. And then we continually test within congregate living, which brings us to clusters and outbreaks. So we've heard this all year, but just kind of to remind you, a cluster is 5 or more positives that's linked together, and an outbreak is 2 or more in a congregate living area that's linked together. So in order to prevent these from happening, not only did we provide education to the facilities and went over prevention protective measures to decrease the spread, we also did a brief inspection of the facility to see if they were following safety measures. So the CD nurse, the communicable disease nurse, and I went out to the facility each time they had some sort of outbreak and visited to make sure that they were doing what they needed to do. Local health departments were responsible to test all negative long-term care facilities or places of outbreak every 7 days until there's no new positives. So there was sometimes where we went out for months at a time until there were no new positives. They had to go 2 weeks straight. After testing multiple long-term care and skilled nursing facilities, the state finally gave those facilities testing materials to take some burden off the local health department, so they gave them testing machines so they can do them themselves. But sometimes they still called us and said, hey, can you still come out and test? And that's something that we didn't refuse. We were still able to help them. And then not only did we test weekly at nursing home facilities, we did the Caldwell Detention Center, group homes, and businesses upon request. So with communication, we have partnership with UNC Caldwell for daily calls, the school system and community college for daily calls and weekly leadership calls, biweekly calls to the skilled nursing facilities, communication and meetings within our own department, nonstop communication with emergency services, and emergency services calls with the community, and then SIP reps and media updates for the community and for our employees, and then just being available for all calls, any types of hours. And then that's when the vaccines kind of started. So this just shows Pfizer and Moderna. I just put a picture up there, but these are the 2 vaccines that the health department has. So the week of December 21st, we were able to give our first dose of Moderna. However, the supply was very low, and only the frontline workers were able to get it. So I was going to quickly go over our pods. So for the COVID-19 vaccination, we opened 4 pods to the general public. We were thankful and appreciative that we were able to use our own county building to make this happen. When we first started the pods, we trialed this with our health department emergency services as they were in group 1 of the phases. If you remember, we had 4 or 5 phases and then it turned to everybody. So they were at the very beginning. We then copied the same mechanism to other rooms within the health department building. It was a training room, the Tammy Austin conference room, so you ended up having 4 spots within the health department to get your vaccine. So when we did this, we were able to do about 300 to 350 vaccines per day. And we were very fortunate to have Caldwell Community College nurses to help us. There were students. And not only was it good experience for them, it was good experience for us too, as teaching them. And we actually hired one of those nurses that came through not too long ago that was doing the vaccines. So once we started to see a decrease in the patients after several phases later, we ended up closing the pods upstairs. And so now we do all the vaccines on our first floor. We had some very chaotic moments from only having Moderna. The state sent us Pfizer. We were told we were getting Moderna. They sent us Pfizer. I called, said, what's going on with this? They said, this is what we got. They didn't really have any more Moderna. Since we had people come to get the second doses that did not get their first dose with us, so anybody from anywhere, the state said, don't turn them away. So if they got their first dose somewhere else and they got their second dose with us, or their first dose with us and their second dose, they can go anywhere they want. So that was our problem. So we called surrounding facilities for vaccines with no luck, but Blue Ridge gave us what we needed without a problem, and we're very fortunate for that. And then we were able to breathe a little bit. So May through July of this year, we were able to just breathe. We were able to return to regular operations, trying to remember what we did before COVID. We had conferences, trainings, or at least sign up for conferences and trainings, and settling in our new norm. We closed our pods. We said goodbye to our state assistants. And then on July 19th, 2021, we're reminded that COVID's still around. So we started again. We had a rapid increase of positives, so we had like 20, 30, 40, it seemed like it jumped to 100 a day. No restrictions, of course, with the state. The EOC phone picked up, testing picked up, and so did vaccines. But this time it was different. We know what we were dealing with. It does have its pros and cons. We know how to handle the situations, the updated guidance constantly changing, the phone calls, multitask with limited staff. The only downfall is that we're tired, have staff that's burned out, and then just trying to keep their passion, trying to keep our staff to say, this is what we're here for, this is what we do to serve. And then mental health during this pandemic is not a joke. Trying to keep our entire team uplifted with new duties along with current job duties can be a struggle. So I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful team to work with that jumps in and helps no matter what. And so here we are with current logistics. So now the EOC phone rings for testing and vaccine questions and scheduling. It hasn't picked up enough to stay late evening and weekend, so we're able to manage what we have with what we got going on. We have not opened the pods back up. However, we are administering vaccines Tuesday through Thursday from 9 to 11:30 and from 1 to 4 each day, Tuesday through Thursday, and then Pfizer on Wednesday with around 30 to 40 a day. We're continuing to work with businesses and community to set up events, and boosters will begin on September the 20th, depending on state guidance for the general public. So we look at our numbers increasing. We may have to open the pods back up depending on what's going on there. Testing has increased outside for COVID, so we are still encouraging appointments to be made so we can get all the information so they won't have to wait at all. However, we will take drive-ups. We have been seeing about 96 a day, just depending on what's going on with that. We are thankful for the partnership with the community, the paramedic program. The community paramedic program, as Tara and Jason continue to COVID test and vaccinate in the field, as well as help us with events. We are still testing congregate living if they do not have their own machine. And we went back to only state mandated programs, so like immunization, case management, STDs. Luckily, we're slowly receiving help from the state again for data entry. And they just showed up last week, and we're very thankful for it because it keeps piling up. So unfortunately, this is our new normal. We need to figure out how we can live in our new normal. The WHO stated on September the 8th, 2021, that this is not going away. The virus may mutate to where symptoms aren't as contagious or deadly. We may treat this virus like the flu or advocate for a COVID flu vaccine like we do each year. It's about that time, too. We're going to have to start looking at flu vaccines. This is our new normal, and we need to find a way to adjust without giving up life. Wear a mask when needed, distance when you can, wash your hands, and get your vaccine. Our front line has lived COVID for the past 18 months. You do not really know COVID until you've lived it. Whether in public health, healthcare in general, emergency services, or when it hits home, whatever your vaccine is, my team and I urge you to get the vaccine. January 1st, 2021 is my vaccination reason, and it wasn't a New Year's resolution, I promise. So I do want to thank all my staff for their incredible hard work, emergency services, and Paige for the countless hours they put in, and for your support during the pandemic, and all the county employees for helping pitch in.
All right, and like I said before, I'd asked Anna to come and give us an update because a lot of times I think we sit here as commissioners and just not really realizing what our employees are doing on a daily basis. And we just got an email today from her and the staff there where they had a vaccine clinic at Fairfield and then held one yesterday at Hudson Methodist Church, and Bernhard is coming up, and we get oftentimes we may think that our health department is not maybe proactive enough, if you will, and I wanted Anna to come and say what she's doing, and she didn't even highlight these things that they have done in our health department. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody shows up there needing a vaccine, even on Monday, they can get a vaccine.
Yeah, we're not going to freeze.
You're not turning anybody
We'll
away.
get it.
We just don't advertise that because we're trying to manage it well, but we don't turn anybody away. And this new round of booster shots are coming, and off the top of your head, I know I'm asking you something, but how many people are vaccinated that's going to be looking for a booster shot?
About 34,000.
34,000 people, residents of Caldwell County. So just imagine each one's got to wait, I assume, that 15-minute time interval after they get the booster shot to make sure there's no allergic reaction. So multiply that out in a time figure of 34,000 people to come in and get their second shot. Now, we know other facilities are providing that, and some of those are, but they're not going into people's homes, right? These other facilities, your local doctor office is not going to dispatch a nurse to your house, but we are. And if you can't get there, we're going to make sure you get the vaccine through our community paramedic program or some staff at the health department. And how many is on staff at the health department that's what you would consider frontline folks?
I have about 27 nurses.
27 nurses.
But I will say, I have a lot of admin staff who
Right.
goes out and tests too. So I want to
That's
say
right.
maybe about 50.
So a total of 50 people, 27 nurses that are handling this. So, and that's their resource, right? We don't call up another institution or another hospital in the neighboring county and get somebody to come over and help us, or even our hospital here. They're overwhelmed and they can't come help us. So those are things that our health department is doing. And I guess I'm tooting their horn just a little bit for them this evening, but they are tired, and as is everybody. And this has really become personal with me, as I currently have somebody very close to me that's in the hospital as a direct result of COVID. And I can't emphasize enough to everybody that is watching this tonight to get vaccinated. right? And a lot of folks are saying that you don't want to get vaccinated, and I understand that. It is certainly your choice. But I would highly recommend to get the vaccination because it is personal and it does affect people. And people are dying, right? I know some friends that died this weekend from this COVID. So, and it is proven science that the vaccinations keep people from dying. Very few people that have been vaccinated have died from COVID. And so, but the numbers are 20-fold of people that are passing away that have not been vaccinated. So that's my stump that I wanted to get on and say that our citizens and the folks in our community, all I can do is recommend you go get vaccinated. And if you show up at our health department, they'll be glad to provide that for you. And I just want to say thank you to you and your staff and all that you have done in this pandemic. And we certainly recognize it, and even a little more tonight. But you didn't highlight a lot of things that you folks have done. I didn't realize personally to begin with that y'all were carrying out food when all this thing started. But you know, that's a part of public health, and that's a part of what our folks there are willing to go and do, and would still do it, I'm sure, if we get a call that somebody needs that assistance. So thank you for what you're doing. All right, anybody else?
And Ann, I'll just echo what Chairman Church said. Please send back our appreciation to you and your staff, and we're awfully proud of you. You've done a hell of a job for a new health director who just got started and within the first few months hit a massive pandemic here. So we're very proud of you, and you've done a great job. Keep up the good work, and again, thank you for all you guys are doing out there.
Thank you.
And let us know if you need anything.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, next on our agenda is a public hearing, and that is in reference to a zoning density decrease request. And Ms. Shelley Stevens, our planning director, is here to guide us in this evening.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Public Health and EMS, and I appreciate that presentation, and to all the frontline workers. I do appreciate y'all. So tonight we have a request from the Coves, and specifically Dan Shattuck, the sales manager for the Coves, is requesting a conditional zoning density decrease. So this is a legislative public hearing for that request. And the property owner, again, is the Coves in Caldwell County, the Coves Mountain River Club. And the specific LLCs submitted by the applicant are the Estates of NC LLC, John's Gamewell LLC, Coves Playmore Beach LLC, and Jordalusa Properties LLC. And everything I'm about to present to you relates to the legality of their request, and then it comes straight from their application, the data does. So the maps in your packets show the May 2019 Coves master plan, so as it currently is. And those areas that are highlighted there are the areas in which they would like to decrease their density. And by density, that means home sites. And so this is the August 2021 proposed changed master plan. And just for those who aren't aware, the Coves is in western Caldwell County. It is zoned planned unit development zoning, which again is a conditional zoning district in Caldwell County. And it is south and east of Attico Road, and then it's north and east of Playmore Beach Road, and south and west of Abington Road, and west of Rocky Road. And of course, the development is a single family home, residential development with a golf course, a pool, so it has open space and wooded area to give you an idea of what it looks like. And from the current plan, they would actually be increasing the number of acres slightly to 3,290 acres. And that is for this August 2021 proposal that they submitted. And the way that the density is actually decreasing, in case you noticed that, is because, again, they're removing home sites. So they would be removing 155 home sites in this proposal, and they would be adding 13 acres of open space at Playmore Beach Road in that corner that is abutting Playmore Beach Road, where they're going to have a gate in the future. And planned unit development zoning, such as that which they have zoned their development, is considered conditional zoning because a master plan is required by the zoning ordinance before they could rezone to planned unit development. And the definition of conditional zoning from our general statutes is a legislative zoning map amendment with site-specific conditions incorporated into that map amendment. So that's how it's different from the rest of our zoning that is traditional or conventional zoning. And increases or decreases in density to conditionally zoned districts must be reviewed and approved by the Planning Board and Board of Commissioners due to a recent amendment to the state statutes, and that's at NCGS 160D-703B, for those who would like to take a look. And the site is located in an area identified by our comprehensive plan's future land use map with planned unit development zoning, and that's how it's currently zoned, so it is aligned with that plan. This is not a rezoning request, but it is heard similarly, and you do look at the comprehensive plan and see if the request is in alignment with it. And again, our future land use map is a part of that comprehensive plan. And I have some additional information, just in case you're interested. They're still meeting their 25% open space requirement. They've completed 159 houses, constructed 159 homes within the Coves per our blueprints permitting report, and then 41 are under construction. They, again, are wanting to remove 155 home sites by making the sites larger. And their old plan from May, so this is how it currently exists. It's 3,277 acres per their application, and they're wanting to move to that 3,290 acre development with fewer home sites, so ultimately lower density. They have 2 gated entries currently, but they hope to build 2 more. They all will have Yelp systems, and I'm trying to think if there's any other pertinent information. Approximately 419, or last I spoke with the Coves, 419 lots have been sold within the Coves. And then the Planning Board, as noted, does have to review this by that new state law. And they do recommend approval of the consistency statement and reasonableness statement per NCGS 160D-605A through C and density decrease to the Coves master plan. And on the screen here and in your packets is the consistency and reasonableness statement that they are recommending, along with a motion to approve the density decrease. However, you may create your own for either approval or denial, and there is an alternate in your packet for denial if you choose to do that. And the Coves may speak if they want to as well, and any residents.
All right. So, did anybody else need to speak on your behalf? Let's do it this way. Let's open the public hearing. So I'll declare the public hearing open. And I did have one person sign up, Jim Kynes. Mr. Kynes, if you would, sir, you could come up to the microphone and state your name and address and what your concerns is about this public hearing during this part on this density decrease request. So,
my name is Jim Kynes. I live at 4995 Soaring Top Lane at the Coves. I don't have a concern, I just have a question. And the question is, there are 3 small lots at the end of Soaring Top Lane on the south side, right at the entrance off of High Valley Way. And they're listed as septic 1, 2, and 3, and I just wanted clarification on what that was, whether they're buildable or not buildable lots. So it's just an open question that I'd like an answer.
And I have a real honest, open answer for you. I have no idea. But I assume that our planning director at some point could answer your question. I don't know that that's relevant here tonight, but
I'd be happy to look into that and get that answer for you.
Okay.
I can give you my contact information.
Okay, thank you.
all right, so thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so nobody else signed up to speak in this matter, this public hearing. So did you guys want to say anything on your behalf, or you just coming to observe? And
No, if anybody had any questions, or if we had questions, we'd be more than happy to answer.
has anybody got any questions for these gentlemen?
Can you answer that gentleman's question?
Again,
I thought you could because I saw you nodding your head.
they are not buildable. It is strictly for septic systems for the 2 home sites up the road, or 3 home sites up the road for their perk.
So did you hear that, Mr. Kynes? They are not buildable, and they're specifically for 2 home sites up the road to have septic systems for future building.
Correct.
So,
One question would be, who owns them?
It's on to you. They're owned by whoever buys the property.
Okay, the lots that you
Own the property right now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
all right, sir. Well, good. We got that settled. Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
I have a question. My father, Charles Epler, now he passed away, so I'm representing him. He owns property on Johns River, and as I understand it, I don't think the coast is all the way up for that on Estes, at the Estes Graveyard. Now, he received a letter, and it might be where his land is on Rocky Road. I'm not sure if they own that property.
It's probably for the
Rocky
land, the
Road.
property on the Rocky Road. Yeah.
Right, and because I've been listening to her saying, you know, on the Rocky Road and stuff like that. So I'm not understanding if they're going to widen that road maybe possibly or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the road, but what's before us tonight is to amend their current request back to lower the density there, and they're going to build fewer homes and make bigger tracts of land within the Coves as it currently sits, and that's what our issue is here tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right. We want to give everybody an opportunity. So with that, then a hand has gone up in the rear. Yes, sir.
Did I understand the lady to say there was a golf course on the place?
I didn't hear that, but there used to be a golf course there, but I don't think it's operational now. So.
Well,
No, there used to be, and they
Yeah.
have made some amendments to plans. There were going to be RV sites, but they are no longer doing that as well as part of this density decrease. They have removed that, which they said a lot of their residents were not interested in the RV sites.
So no golf course. Sorry.
Well, was there a community vote on that? I'm a developer too, and it takes so much of the people to say, yes, they can do these things, and yes, they can't.
Well, the Coves within themselves has a group or housing authority, if you will, so that they are the community. So if you buy property in the Coves, you can have a voice in what they want to do in an equestrian center or the things that they have planned there. All right. So with that, I'll close the public hearing and ask if there is any other comment or discussion or question from any of the commissioners. Hearing none, I'll read this motion then. A motion to approve this request is reasonable and in the public interest because the amendment consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, which contains a future land use map and aligns with the request by suggesting planned unit development zoning for this area. There is no evidence at this time this statement was created that the density decrease request would negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood and adjacent properties, and it can promote public health, safety, and welfare by decreasing density and therefore allowing for less impervious surface and fewer carbon dioxide emissions from homes. So that is our consistency statement as been presented this evening. Any other question or comment? So all in favor of allowing this zoning density decrease, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. And I will say, that's probably a first for me, that somebody's come wanting to decrease something. I just want to say, most times they want more.
Makes it a lot easier.
So, we appreciate you gentlemen and appreciate all the efforts there and what's going on at the Coves.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your patience, too.
Yes, sir. All right, so next, we're going to move into our items for decision. And the first of those is a 10-year delinquent tax release. Monty Woods, our tax administrator.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Each year, we request the release of the 10-year delinquent property tax, which are no longer collectible using our enforced collection methods under North Carolina General Statute 105-378A. Our office has made efforts to collect these delinquent taxes. We respectfully request the release of the following tax amounts, which is an updated number from what y'all have. The real and personal property taxes for 2011 totaling $157,518.59 for this year. We respectfully ask that you release those.
All right, so hearing the request from our tax administrator, what's the pleasure of the board this evening? Y'all don't want to let them taxes go, do you?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we release the taxes as presented by our tax administrator.
All right, any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion carries. So thank you, Monty.
Thank you.
The next is a request for public hearing to be held on October the 18th for a change of a road name. And so Micah Kelly is here this evening to inform us about this road name change and the public hearing he's asking for.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Basically, I'm just here today to ask for the next public hearing to have an adoption of a road name. Me and Monty, my supervisor, actually rode up and spoke to some of the people that live on the road. And as you can see, they've actually kind of already posted their own green street sign in your packets there. And basically, it's not in our E911 system. So when these people are calling 911, there's a fork in the road, and it actually stops at the fork because that road system has not been made, which was brought up with my attention when I found this during the E911 reval that we were doing. So basically, I just would like to adopt the street name so that I can get it created in the system.
But we had to have a public hearing on that and advertise that properly for October 18th. So what's the pleasure of the board in having this public hearing on October the 18th?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we have the public hearing for this change of the road name on October the 18th.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. So we'll see you next month, Micah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next is ARP funds and expenditure request. Chief Dino DiBernardi and Jeff Cardwell, along with our interim manager, Tony Helton, is going to enlighten us here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank
Good
you
evening.
for having us again. I know this seems to be fairly consistent. Tonight, we have fast-tracked a couple of the projects due to the severe increase in call volume in the pre-hospital setting, specifically with EMS and the health department, as well as some safeguards to put in place for our vaccinations, or vaccines, the three different types, and then the vaccination incentive for the employees. So the first of which is a multi-patient vehicle. Specifically, this will be used to offset the burden. I can use a specific example of this evening at Caldwell Memorial Hospital. They're inundated with patients, well over the census for the number of patients versus the number of available beds. And unfortunately, it ties up transport units, which then places a severe strain in the pre-hospital setting for ambulances. This multi-patient vehicle will offer multiple options for relieving that stress, but also for vaccinations, testing, rehabilitation, and otherwise. It will be used to drop off patients in the interim, keeping the ambulances in service, and then also for the other noted needs. And a lot of that is in your packet. If you have specific questions, I'll definitely answer those. Ventilators are very self-explanatory. Definitely an increased need as of late with the reduction of first responders on certain call types, specifically for COVID positives and presumptive positives. It allows us for increased uses on cardiac arrest patients to set the ventilator settings and not have to have a bag valve mask to be in the patient's face, which then, of course, reduces the potential for contracting the virus. The finalization of the stretchers to power load from manual, which again reduces the need for first responders on those calls that we do not have them on. It allows 2 people to do what before 4 to 5 or 6 were doing. Cradle Points facilitates telemedicine. That is another means of reducing the number of patients that's having to go to the hospital and or to urgent cares or other medical settings. We're able to go out, treat the patients on scene, hold what is a tablet, which looks like a small TV, up, and the doctor will see them, and we treat through that doctor. Telemedicine is fairly cutting edge, although it has been around for plenty of years. In the pre-hospital setting, however, this is something that's really come to light. We're able to do system-initiated refusals on those COVID positives or presumptive positive patients where they don't meet the need to go to the ED and clog that ED. They can be treated on site. Community paramedics and our health department staff can go out and treat you in the comforts of your own home. And then when you get to that certain level, that hopefully you don't, but if you do get to the point that you need to be transported, that can be facilitated as well. With the one addition, and Brian is here also if you have specific questions. I think he's still here. On the generator, currently a generator, if there is a loss of power at the health department, a generator has to be brought to the health department, and there's a process to get the power back on. It is not an automatic transfer switch. This will accommodate that to keep the EOC running, the health department running, and the key here is the vaccines. If the vaccines go without power for a specific period of time, and the temperature fluctuates within that time span, not only is there reporting requirements, but the potential for loss of vaccination or vaccines. And obviously, with the reduced amount of vaccines that are available and the increased demand, that's a tremendous concern. And the final request for a vaccine initiative to encourage county employees to receive their vaccination before a certain date and receive some monetary benefit from that. And those are the main projects. They do meet, and if you have any questions, I can absolutely go back through them on the priorities that the county set forth for our American Rescue Plan Act funds, as well as it meets all the requirements from the federal government as eligible projects through ARPA funds. But that's a lot of information very quickly, so if you have any follow-up questions, anything you need specific on the certain topics, I'll be more than happy to answer that, or we have a wide array of people that can assist.
When you said vehicle, is that gonna be another like Freightliner or ambulance? Is that gonna be a Sprinter van? Or
It is, the easiest way to describe it is a church bus. It's like a van front. It would be a 20-passenger church bus, but what it does is it takes out the seats, and it allows us to transport 8 patients at once. So although in a stationary setting, such as the hospital, we would drop the patients off, treat them there before they go into the hospital, and then for health department purposes, it'll be used to go into neighborhoods and community events to do vaccinations, to do testing. It'll also, obviously in the future, be able to be used at large incidents for rehab, for mass evacuations. You know, we've, knock on wood, we have had some very close calls with potential fires at nursing homes. And right now, if there was a need for a mass evacuation, those resources, they are called ambulance buses. I reserve that for the larger wheeled vehicles, but this is a smaller version of it. Right now, if we were to get those, it would come out of Greensboro, Charlotte, or Asheville. So a little bit of a time span there. This, though, for the COVID purposes, obviously decreased there on the EMS side. And no expansion of service here. It would just, it's augmenting it, and it's honestly decreasing the burden on the system.
How long is it going to take us to get it?
6 weeks.
That's not too bad.
Maybe sooner. Actually, they do have one on site there in Virginia. So it's just outside the Beltway, Chantilly, Virginia. It is state contract. I didn't mean to mention that. All of these projects, other than vaccine incentive, do purchase off state contract. NC Sheriff's Association and or HGAC, so no bid process.
So you would take this and potentially you'd park it at the emergency room?
Yep, so anytime the
And
hospital's on diversion, which of course lately has been regularly, it would be there. When it's off, it would be used for vaccination and testing, or could be obviously offset. All of these projects actually do have multiple uses. Ventilators can be obviously shared if that need. For example, right now in at Carolina Healthcare Morganton, CHS Morganton, our report, 49 people in the hospital with COVID positive, 18 in the ICU, 13 on ventilators, and they are down to 2 available ventilators. Is that correct? 2 available ventilators. Catawba Valley has 75 COVID positives in the hospital, 14 in ICU, and 12 on ventilators. Caldwell Memorial has 30 in the hospital, 8 in the ICU, 7 of which are on ventilators. So it's just to augment the system. One of the recommendations from feds on ARPA, or American Rescue Plan Act, sorry.
And how many of those were you purchasing?
It's 1 for each ambulance.
Okay.
So it does obviously in the field assist us on the interfacility transports, which are increasing if you have to transport one from an ICU to another larger facility or specialized care. It also assists on cardiac arrest patients, respiratory arrest patients, or if necessary, we would hope that that wouldn't happen, but in extreme cases, we could assist local hospitals or ICUs with them as well.
And this ambulance bus, if you will, just a personal question, but comes with a generator, will
It does.
set
It's
up.
yes, sir. It's self-supported, comes with all the stretchers. Now, of course, when you stack patients, they're gurneys. They're the old foldable style, but it does come with 3, the Stryker power load stretchers, its own power system, extra AC units, medical supply storage, as well as PPE supply storage.
So the strikers would assist specifically of getting them in that unit.
It does. It actually speeds up the process. So when a patient's brought in on a crew, we would literally not even transfer that patient. That stretcher would go in, one of the other stretchers would go out, and it's immediate.
Right.
Like there is no delay. There would be, the transfer of care happens before we get there over the radio. They hand off the paperwork. The crew clears, goes back in service to handle the call load. Like as we came in, there was 1 truck available for the whole county. So this, because 2 were tied up at the hospital nearing 2 hours right now. I think they're still tied up, so we're probably easily almost at 3 hours with an ambulance tied up. So
yeah,
huge benefit to the system.
All right, any other questions? And again, this is all through the ARP funds, so thankful for those funds to help enable us to expand our services and behalf without impacting basically the taxpayer immediately.
Exactly.
So we're thankful for that. Thankful for Jeff Cardwell, who's here with us this evening, helping us stay in line with all of that too. So, all right. With that, I'll make a motion that we approve this request as has been presented this evening by Dino, DiBernardi, and I'll call the question if there's no other comments or questions. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And
Thank
we
you,
thank
guys.
you guys.
Thank
and
you. Appreciate all you
Thank
do.
you. Go forth and take care of business for us.
What you limping there for, old man?
It's the reason he sat down when he got a chance.
All them young folks are standing up over there. You sitting down.
All right, so our next item is our consent agenda this evening. So Mr. Tony Helton, our interim county manager.
We have our consent agenda for you tonight. The first item is to approve a budget revision for the health department. It's $39,000. This is money from NCDPH to address health disparities and advanced health equity as related to COVID-19. This is 100% grant funds, no local tax dollars. Item B is to approve a budget revision for the comm center to spend $127,770 to purchase equipment for the comm center. This is all 911 funds, so it's also no local tax dollars. Item C is to approve a letter of support for NC threatened treasures. This is the 322-acre tract of forest in Wilson's Creek. This is to support it being transferred to the U.S. Forestry. Item D is to approve a fireworks permit for an event at Red Cedar Farm.
Item E is to approve a resolution establishing the advancement of the schedule of octennial reappraisal from 2029 to 2025. Basically, this goes from an 8-year cycle back to a 4-year cycle for the reval. Item F is to approve an agreement and budget revision for the acquisition of property. You'll have the details in your packet. Item G is it's a late addition, is the DSS flow-through of grant funds for $52,476, and this is something that was found out today, but it allows DSS to spend this money from the state, but it had to be done tonight because it would expire before the next meeting. So that's your consent agenda for tonight.
All right, so any other questions or comments about the consent agenda as has been presented?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this evening's consent agenda as the county manager has stated.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries unanimously as well. All right, so at this time, I'll make a motion that we're going to enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, and this is to consult with an attorney retained by this public body in order to preserve attorney-client privilege between this public body and said attorney. And so we don't expect any decisions out of that for those that may be watching, but we're going to enter into a closed session as I have made the motion, and I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. And so we will enter into closed session. Thank you again for being here, and thank those who are watching by TV. And God bless you, and roll up your sleeve and get vaccinated.